There's a moment most people have experienced at least once in their lives. Someone says something to you. It's not long, it's not complicated, it's not even particularly loud or dramatic. But for some reason, hours later, maybe even the next morning, you're still thinking about it. You're lying there in the dark, and those few words just keep coming back, quiet, persistent, like something unfinished. You probably assumed it was random, just the way memory works sometimes, but it wasn't random at all. That moment had a specific quality to it. Something about it reached past your surface attention and settled somewhere deeper. And the person who said it, they probably didn't even realize what they'd done. This is the thing about attraction that almost nobody talks about, honestly. The men who stay on a woman's mind aren't usually the ones who worked the hardest to get there. They're the ones who created a moment that her brain couldn't file away and forget. They didn't flood her with messages, they didn't perform or over-explain or stay constantly available. They said something or sometimes did something that landed differently, and her mind did the rest. That's what we're really exploring today. Not tactics, not scripts, not some rehearsed line you repeat hoping it works, but the actual psychology behind why certain people become unforgettable, while others, despite genuine effort and good intentions, slowly fade from someone's awareness without ever knowing why. And I want to start with something that might be a little uncomfortable to hear. Most men who feel invisible in their romantic lives are not failing because of who they are. They're failing because of a misunderstanding about how attraction actually works. They've been operating on a belief that goes something like this. The more present I am, the more she'll think about me. The more I say, the more she'll feel. The more I try, the more she'll notice. And on the surface, that sounds logical, reasonable even. If you want someone to know you're interested, you show up. You stay consistent. You keep the conversation alive. But what actually happens in reality is almost the opposite. When you become a constant presence, something shifts in her mind. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly and quietly. You go from being someone she thinks about to someone she simply expects. And once you become expected, the brain stops marking you as significant. You become part of the background. Reliable, yes. Comfortable, maybe. But not magnetic, not memorable in the way that matters. Think about how this works in everyday life. You probably don't notice the streetlights on your regular route home anymore. You pass them every single night, but your brain stopped registering them a long time ago. Not because they stopped existing, but because they became predictable. The mind conserves energy by ignoring what it has already mapped out, what it already knows is going to be there. Now apply that same principle to how you show up in someone's life. If she knows exactly when you'll text, exactly what you'll say, exactly how you'll respond, there's nothing for her mind to engage with. No gap to wonder about, no question left open. And questions are everything because questions keep the mind returning. This is where most conversations about attraction miss the point entirely. They focus on what to say. But the deeper question is what stays, and what stays is almost never the thing that was said most often. It's the thing that created a feeling she didn't see coming. Here's something worth sitting with. Human memory is not a camera. It doesn't record events in order and replay them faithfully. It's much more selective than that. The brain essentially decides in real time what is worth keeping, and its primary filter is emotion, not logic, not repetition, not volume. Emotion. When something creates an emotional response, even a small one, the brain tags it. It marks it as significant, and significant things get revisited. They surface later when things go quiet. They come back during the drive home, or in that half-awake space before sleep. Not because you forced them there, but because the brain is still working through something it found interesting. This is why someone can send 100 forgettable messages and still mean nothing to her emotionally. And someone else can say one unexpected thing, something that sparks curiosity or creates a small but genuine feeling, and suddenly they're living rent-free in her head for days. The difference isn't effort, it's emotional residue. Did the interaction leave something behind for her mind to keep working on? And this brings up a pattern worth naming, because it's one of the most common traps men fall into without realizing it. Safe conversation, the kind that sounds polite, considerate, and completely forgettable. How was your day? Let me know if you need anything. Hope you're doing well. These phrases aren't wrong. They come from a good place, but they carry almost no emotional weight. They ask nothing of her mind. They create no image, no curiosity, no internal shift. And because of that, they pass through her awareness like water through open hands. What's interesting is that most men use safe language because they don't want to seem too forward or come across the wrong way. There's a fear behind it, and that fear is understandable. But the result is a kind of communication that says everything and feels like nothing. She receives it, she responds, and 5 minutes later, it's gone. Not because she doesn't like you, but because there was nothing in it for her mind to hold. The antidote to this isn't being bold for the sake of boldness. It isn't trying to shock or impress. It's something quieter and far more sustainable. It's learning to say things that create a small, genuine internal experience for her, something that makes her pause, even briefly, something that makes her think without knowing exactly why that you're different. There's a concept in psychology that's relevant here, and it's simpler than it sounds. The mind is drawn toward what it hasn't fully resolved. When something is completely clear and fully explained, the brain moves on from it quickly. But when something feels slightly open, slightly layered, the mind keeps circling back. It wants to understand, it wants to finish the thought. And in that returning, that revisiting, feelings begin to deepen. This is why mystery, real mystery, not games, not emotional unavailability, but genuine depth that isn't fully revealed at once is so attractive. It gives her mind something to engage with beyond the surface. It creates a kind of quiet pull that she might not even be able to explain to herself. Now, here's where this gets practical. Because everything we've talked about so far is just context. The real question is, what does this look like in actual conversation? It starts with observation, specific, genuine observation. Not flattery, not rehearsed compliments, but the kind of thing you say when you've actually been paying attention to someone as a person, not just as someone you're trying to impress. There's a significant difference between telling someone they're beautiful and telling someone you notice something particular about the way they carry themselves in certain moments. The first one, while kind, lands in the same category as 1,000 other compliments she's received. The second one does something different. It tells her that you are present, that you are paying attention in a way that most people aren't. And suddenly she's not just receiving a compliment, she's wondering what else you've noticed. She's looking back at the interaction through a new lens. That wondering is the feeling you're creating. And feelings, as we've established, are what stay. But here's where most people undermine themselves after discovering this. They find something that works and immediately overuse it. They turn it into a template. And the moment something becomes a template, it loses the quality that made it powerful in the first place, which is that it felt real. The reason a specific, genuine observation creates impact is because it carries authenticity. It signals that you were actually paying attention, not performing attention. The moment it becomes a formula, she can feel the difference. Not always consciously, but somewhere beneath the surface, something shifts. It stops feeling like connection and starts feeling like strategy. And people can sense that distinction even when they can't name it. So the rule isn't find the magic words. The rule is become the kind of person who actually notices things, who is genuinely curious about who she is, not just what she looks like or how available she is, who pays attention in a way that feels rare. Because when you do that, the words come naturally, and natural is what lands. There's also something important about what you don't say, what you leave open. Most men, especially when they feel something going well, instinctively want to keep it going. They want to fill every pause, clarify every statement, make sure nothing is left uncertain, and in doing so, they accidentally remove the very thing that was building attraction. Silence, in the right moment, does something that words can't. It leaves space for her mind to move into. It gives the feeling room to expand rather than shutting it down with more noise. When you say something genuine and then step back, when you let it sit without immediately following it up with more, you allow her to sit with the feeling. And that's when it deepens. This is not about being cold or distant, it's about trusting that impact doesn't need to be chased. If what you said landed, it will do its work without you standing over it trying to confirm that it did. And this trust, this quietness, this willingness to let something exist without immediately needing a response is itself part of what makes someone memorable. It communicates something without saying a word. It says you're comfortable in the moment, you're not anxious, you're not waiting for her to validate what you said. You said it because it was true, and that's enough. That quality is rare. And rare things, as we've been talking about this whole time, are what the mind holds on to. So when you pull all of this together, what you're really building is not a technique, it's a presence, a way of being in conversation that feels different from what she typically experiences. One that creates small emotional moments without forcing them. One that says something specific and then trusts it. One that makes her feel genuinely seen rather than generally complimented. One that leaves just enough open that her mind has somewhere to go after the conversation ends. That's the person who stays on her mind, not the loudest one, not the one who tried the hardest, the one who felt different, the one who created a moment, the one her mind keeps returning to in the quiet hours, not because he demanded attention, but because he left something behind worth thinking about. Attraction was never about doing more. It was about doing what actually lands. And once you understand the difference, you stop exhausting yourself chasing presence and start naturally becoming someone worth remembering.